Hello, this is Dr. Harriet Fraad with Capitalism Hits Home, a podcast about the intersection of personal life with social and political and economic life. And as I have said before, and this is Gabor Mate's word, we are biopsychosocial animals, and all aspects of our lives interact and influence and shape one another. This program is brought to you by Democracy at Work, a small donor nonprofit organization which is available to you on YouTube. So that I hope you go on YouTube and look at all the wonderful podcasts and information we have there, and that you press the red button to subscribe so that you can get information and so that you can be part of the group that supports this show and the other shows on Democracy at Work. I hope you share this podcast. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you subscribe. Thank you. Our audience keeps growing and growing, and I'm grateful to you because you make it grow. Today, I want to talk more about what I started talking about last time, which began when I asked myself the question, why is it all men who commit the mass murders that occur in the U.S. every day? Why? What's going on here? Why? What's the difference in the way that men and women are socialized? What's the difference in the way we each learn? What do women learn from caring? What do we learn from caring labor? What do we learn from taking care of vulnerable life? From caring for children who can't talk? From feeling what they need and trying to provide them with what they need? From comforting people? What do we learn from our domestic work? Our work of creating cleanliness, nurture, food, beauty in the house, things that have been assigned to us since we were too young to even know it, but which we absorb as part of the legacy of gender, and which males don't absorb. So looking at those things, we think, okay, well, one of the things we certainly learn is how to organize, because you have to organize children's lives. When they're picked up from school, when they go to school, who's going to watch them, what you're going to do when you're trying to make dinner. What do they need at school? What kind of shots do they need? What kind of reports have to be given? What kind of feedback does the school need from you? Women generally, of course, not always, and there are some men who do this, but it's about 2% of the population at most that is a primary carer for their children. So organization is very important. You're the one who keeps it together. In the words of one of the women in the wonderful book called Holding the Line by Barbara Kingsolver, it's about the women who maintained the strike at the Morenci copper mine because men who since Phelps Dodge owned the law around there, they made a law that men could be arrested for picketing and blocking the mines. So women took over and did it, and they took over a lot of the work in that strike. And one of the women that Barbara Kingsolver interviewed said, women are the egg that holds it all together. We're the batter. And that takes organization. Also, it takes, what do you learn from teaching? Because you have to teach children. You're not born knowing how to play well with others. You're not born knowing that you can't throw your food or smear it all over your face. You learn those things because somebody's taught you. Somebody's taught you how to behave. You don't naturally go to use the potty or the toilet. Somebody has to teach you how to enter civilization. What do you get from those lessons? And what you get is you get a sense of joy from caring. Also, you get a sense of being fed up with caring sometimes, but you get a sense of satisfaction watching someone flourish from caring and from your caring labor. And you get a satisfaction of being emotionally adequate to the people around you. Their happiness reflects you're feeling good. I remember an interview with Nancy Pelosi, who's hardly one of my heroes, but they said, "How can you do this job?" She said, "What do you mean? I have 6 children. I had a massive organizational job every day." And that said it all, said it all. Also, from cleaning, you get a sense that you can order your world. You can make it more beautiful. And it's your responsibility to try to do so. And you can keep people healthy. It's kind of a mandate that we absorb with gender lessons. And so we've been very trained before we knew it. Gender is, as I said before, gender is acquired permanently by 3 years old. And the way they see is they test the galvanic skin responses of males and females when they show males and females both in person and on a screen. And girls attend more to the female models, and boys attend more to the male models. We're trained to know our gender by the time we're 3, and to pick up behaviors from the same-sex parent and from other same-sex models. And so one doesn't have to get taught. And if you did begin to get taught, little girls have different toys, as I've said before. The girls section, which used to be girls sections before they didn't want to admit that they segregate the toys, the girls section has dolls and makeup kits. The boys section had guns, rock'em sock'em robots, action figures that are violent. And that isn't part of girls' training. It's part of boys' training. It's part of the male gender. Well, how do you change that? That is a big job. And the person who has come closest to doing that is Jacinda Ardern, the Socialist Labour Prime Minister of New Zealand, who has now stepped down, but has been the Prime Minister for the last 6 years, no, the last 5.5 years. What she did was change the way we even thought about it. The century-old idea to close the gender gap was equal pay for equal work. But that doesn't work out very well because 80% of jobs are gendered. So if you're on the same job, okay, equal pay for equal work, but women aren't on the same jobs, as I talked about before. So how do you do that? Well, what Jacinda Ardern did was start an initiative not of equal pay for equal work, but of equal pay for work of equal value, of equal skill and equal value. And the way she measured this is she looked at some of the skills. Let's say, I'll give an example, the skill of working with the elderly in an old age home or as home health aides. Home health aides are among the most poorly paid employees in the United States. Last time I looked, they charge you hire a home health aide only through a home health aid organization. They charge the customer $18 and they pay $9 an hour. Now it's probably gone up, but they get about half, which is a terrible wage. And they're all women, and they're usually immigrant women and women of color in New Zealand as they are in the United States. In New Zealand, they were mainly Maori women. because the Maoris were the native population who was colonized and oppressed like the Native Americans are here. 55 million Native Americans were slaughtered when we decided to, quote, civilize America. And Native Americans were the last to get the vote, not in every state until 1965, and are the poorest people in the United States, the worst paid. Well, the Maori were the equivalent of that in New Zealand, and so are the Pacific Islanders. They're people of color, and they filled the poorly paid care work. And so what they did was they studied, okay, what are the skills? Well, one of the skills is dealing with irrational people. Often, as old people lose their minds, they become irrational and quite violent. Not all of them, of course. All of us are somewhat different. And home health aides have to restrain them, have to hold them, have to carry them, and also have to create order for them. And equivalent skills are those of a jail warden, who often has irrational, violent people to deal with. And jail wardens were paid over 30% more than home health aides. They also studied what is emotional labor? What is it like putting your brain and your body whole focus on meeting the needs of another human being who often can't even speak those needs? And they looked at the equivalent of that kind of work dealing with animals in a zoo, where zookeepers, who are primarily male, have to understand what these animals need, even though they don't speak. But zookeepers were paid much more than home health care workers or early childhood workers or nurses' aides in hospitals or all the other female work. And on the basis of looking at male work and what is the pay for male work and what are equivalent skills that are involved in women's work, in care work, and in assisting work, they raised caregivers' pay 30.5% across the board in New Zealand. And that was everyone from social workers and therapists to childcare workers to nursing aides to teachers' aides in school to early childhood teachers and kindergarten teachers and primary school teachers, all the people who have to deal in caring labor. That was a revolutionary move. And Jacinda Ardern has decided to step down, but she is enormously popular. She cared so well for her people that they lost less than 50 lives to COVID. And when there was a massacre of Muslims at Christchurch, because some Australian mass killer came in and killed a whole bunch of people, and what she did was she put on hijab. She got on television. She said, "We are one people. No one people and no one person is responsible for all of this because we are together. We are together with our Muslim brothers and sisters." And that meant that the kind of horrible bias against Muslims that we had in the United States didn't happen there. People who were Muslims or looked like Muslims weren't killed. There was a different feeling from her prime ministership. And it is interesting that during COVID, Angela Merkel and other female leaders had less deaths. The leader of Taiwan, they had less deaths than countries with male leaders. Now, every woman, of course, is not a nurturer. You have Margaret Thatcher, certainly wasn't a nurturer. And Hillary Clinton certainly wasn't. Bernie Sanders wanted a higher wage. He wanted $15 an hour as a minimum wage, knowing that 66% of minimum wage workers are women, often women with children, whereas Hillary wanted a $12.25 minimum wage, or maybe it was $12.50. So that, a man, Bernie Sanders, could have a lot more compassion for the women who do the majority of the lowest paid work than a woman did, like Hillary Clinton. However, generally, women are taught to develop compassion and caring, are prepared for taking care of children, not only prepared with doll play, but with the whole genres of children's literature and the films and the televisions and the models of women as caregivers. And males are not brought up that way. And they're not brought up to care and have compassion for people. Not that some males aren't brought up that way. Of course, I'm not talking about all of one gender or all of another. But there has been a gendered toleration for violence in the United States, so that our government, which is overwhelmingly male, can fight harder to preserve the right of having a gun to kill people than the right to child care or after-school care or health care or home heat or having a home at all. That some of that is a gender-based violence that has been tolerated in males. And you can see it. You can see it in movies where it isn't usually the female who's out there either slaughtering Indians or threatening people with guns. It's the male. It's something we have to change. And I think Jacinda Ardern in the Socialist Labour Party platform in New Zealand showed the way. We have to value women's skills and women's labor that's similar to what some men do at a much higher price, and remunerate women for that labor. We also have to teach males from the moment they're born to be compassionate people. In Sweden, one of the things they're doing to combat gender stereotypes is that in preschool, they don't use gender. They don't say him, his. They call people by their name. Rather than I want him over here, they say I want Lars over here. And they make sure that the children can play with toys that are associated with both genders. So the girls are encouraged to play with trucks. They don't play with guns at all, but with trucks. And in the dress-up corner, boys are encouraged to dress up as different things that they would like. And girls are encouraged to play with trucks and are encouraged to play physical games and encouraged to be construction, to make constructions and say, yeah, let's make a construction here. And boys are encouraged to join house play. Kids like to play house. I remember when I was an early childhood supervisor, there were a group of girls that wouldn't let a little boy play, and he really wanted to play. They were playing house. And I said, look, let Tommy be the father. And as soon as I got out of earshot, the girl said, okay, Tommy, you're the father. You're away at work all the time. Okay. That they were rejecting the kind of gender equality I was trying to teach because they had been programmed. Boys don't belong in the house. Men don't belong in the house. We have to teach the opposite of that. We also have to do what all the Scandinavian countries do and what Germany and France and most of Europe, at least Western Europe, does, which is give paternity leaves. In Norway, paternity leave is compulsory. You can't get extra credit at work for not taking a paternity leave to bond with your baby. We don't even have maternity leaves in the United States, no less paternity leaves. So we don't honor the idea and value the idea of taking care of children well enough to pay for it. We have 10 days elective maternity leave, which you can take unpaid, which shows how little we invest in caring labor. Whereas other countries that don't have our shooting problem or as much aggression and crime on the part of men who commit most of the crimes, they have paternity leaves and they're encouraged. They also have home leave. They also have guaranteed paid vacation. Every employee in France is guaranteed 5 weeks paid vacation. And they do that for homework balance, and also because one of the ways that people bond best with each other and with children is having time away together, which America doesn't do. And all of these things, plus, of course, the capitalist gun industry that says, don't buy a gun, not because just we want to make money. Buy a gun, be a man, be a real man, a man who protects his family and who protects himself. Whereas another way of teaching, like they do in Holland in early gender studies, is they teach that you protect people by being affectionate. You hug them. Also, those countries teach sex differently, and sex education and birth control. Holland has a really very advanced curriculum, but so do all the Scandinavian countries. And they begin with teaching kids that hugs feel nice, that it's nice to be close to people. And then as they go on, they learn about reproduction because they learn that the flowers don't grow unless the bee pollinates one flower with another flower, and that makes flowers grow. And then in middle school, they start learning about their bodies, their male and female bodies. And then in high school, they learn about having sex, making sure that they can enjoy their pleasure and other people's pleasure, as well as what is the responsibility they may have to the next generation if they create another human being. That's a very different idea. We only have 17 states that have biologically correct sex education and none that mandate relationship education and sex as part of relationships rather than as biological facts. That's why we have the most teen pregnancy in the developed world. But all these things are connected, and they help us understand why mass murder is a male occupation in the United States. Because males aren't taught how to deal with their feelings of vulnerability and need, and how to reach out aside from reaching out in sex. And American men are needful because 81% of American women are not married by choice. They don't want to marry men. And blue-collar men are overwhelmingly rejected in marriage. It's women who now are the majority of people who reject marriage rather than men, as they used to be. And so all those things create people hardened to care, people who feel they have to take power when they're feeling abandoned. And the two motivations that are dominant in all the mass murders I've studied, which is quite a lot, are that the man has had a loss that he has trouble dealing with. Sometimes it's a girlfriend or a wife who's left. In one case, it was a mother who died, and that was the only person to whom one of the recent mass killers was attached. Or they've lost a job, another emblem of masculinity. The two emblems are having a woman who loves you and having a job. And being robbed of those things makes people feel unmanly. So they listen to the ads like, automatic weapon ad that says, "Does your wife or girlfriend earn more than you? Revoke your man card. Are you preferring tofu to meat? Revoke your man card." And at the end of all of those things, it says, "Reinstate your man card." And so people take their masculinity into their own hands and shoot people and show how powerful they are. We have to stop that. We can take a model from New Zealand, where they have made a 30.5% increase in pay for caring laborers. Very, very important. And they have changed not only the gender bias of jobs and the gender bias of pay, but also the color bias, because it's usually people of color who have these caring labor jobs at the bottom. That's all for today. I hope I've helped you understand what's going on with gender and mass murder. And of course, you can't really open a newspaper without not only finding out about a mass murder, but all the individual murders or the small group murder. A mass murder is a shooting of at least 4 people that you aren't related to. But there are shootings every day, and they are committed by men. Understanding this and understanding how we get out of it to create a more egalitarian and nurturing society for all of us. I hope you enjoyed this program, not in terms of laughter particularly, but in terms of learning. And I hope that you subscribe to Democracy at Work. Go on the internet, find Democracy at Work, and press the red button that says subscribe, so you'll get news from us, you'll know more about us, we'll share with you, you can share with us, and I hope you tell your friends about this program and all of our other programs at Democracy at Work. Thank you for listening. That's the most important thing, that you listen, and then sharing, and if you can financially help us, to give as much as you can, whether it's a tiny bit or a lot. Thank you so much. Goodbye.